Hello, good morning. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello. I'm always curious about these live streamers who always know, like the moment their stream kicks over. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but there is a substantial delay between when I start the stream and then when you hear the stream. It's like 10, 15 seconds sometimes. So it's like, first of all, sound is good. Thank you, Dave Rush. How hard was that? Really appreciate it. Thank you, brother. That saves me a lot of hassle. All right, so it looks like all the usual misfits are here. So let me start off by introducing myself. My name is Mike Meyers. This is the Total Seminars Ask Mike Anything, AMA, stolen directly from Reddit. The function of this live stream is to allow those of us who are isolated by coronavirus issues to have an opportunity in a forum to ask Mike anything, concentrating on CompTIA certifications. CompTIA IT Fundamentals, A+, Net+, Security+, and beyond. So pretty much ask anything you want. The only thing is that stay away from religion and politics, because we're going to disagree there, probably. And then, but other than that, feel free to ask me anything you want. Now, we've been doing this for almost a month now, and one of the things that's kind of happening organically is people are beginning to ask questions, which is great, but a lot of times the question needs more preparation. So what we've been doing is I'm just telling everybody to contact me. So for those of you who are new, here's the contact Mike information. Both of those emails are great. Use one or the other, doesn't matter. That's my Steam account if you want to game with me, although I'm not gaming too much these days. And that's my phone number for the office, which I'm not at very much, but if you really need to get a hold of me, the screeners will let you through 9 times out of 10. And then when in doubt, DesWeds. If you need to know anything about me, just do a quick DesWeds, and I can always get to you that way. So first of all, this is Ask Me Anything, although we do have a topic today, which is subnetting. We had a big start on subnetting basics yesterday, so today I'm actually going to subnet, which is kind of cool because I'm going to show you some subnetting, and then I'm going to show you kind of a little shortcut, a cheat. It's not a cheat, it's just a quickie way to do almost any subnetting question that you'll see on a CompTIA exam. So we'll get into that very, very shortly. I'm also going to try very, very hard to do topologies today, but I want to definitely get subnetting done completely and get through some questions, and we'll go where we can from there. So with that in mind, let's dive right in. Quick look, see who's here. There, David Burns. Yes, David, I did receive that email. Thank you, sir. Geraldine Burner. I like your polo, Mike. Where'd I get it? This is a very dear friend of mine, works at Mission Control here at Johnson Space Flight Center. If you ever watch the NASA channel, so it's this little gal, she's real small, so just like her brunette head barely sticks up over the console, and she was lead ops planner for increment 62, and I always ask her that whatever, an increment is when 3 astronauts go up until those 3 astronauts come back, so or cosmonauts. So that time period, which is usually 3 to 6 months, is known as a increment. And the ops planners are the people who basically keep track of what everybody's doing on the International Space Station. So my friend Melissa was lead ops planner for this particular increment, and she just finally got off this increment like just a couple of weeks ago, and is now living a life of leisure and is out somewhere camping and having a great time. Okay, so Steve G wants to do the subnets, and Jen Herrera likes the shortcuts. You guys are really going to like this. In fact, some of you guys are going to be like, why didn't you just show us the shortcut first? The answer is because I want you to understand what the heck you're doing and why do we subnet. And then I'll show you a shortcut. So I'll tell you what, I know this is kind of quick. Verkesh, just finished my A+ yesterday, thanks to you, Mike. So you took the A+ certification exams and passed, or did you just finish my training? I'm surprised I'm finding a lot of people, like they take Linda training or Udemy or somebody like that, and then they get the certificate of completion from those guys, and they think that's the certification. No. You have to go through a process where you actually go through the testing, which is a separate issue. TS, Mike, I recently changed from Win 7 to Win 10, and I've noticed I can't map my network the same way. I've turned on SMB version 1, and it worked until I rebooted. Do you use a third-party tool? No. Why would you turn on... And where do you turn on SMB v1 in a Windows environment? You just go into the network card settings and you set up Windows sharing by default, and that lights up all the NetBEUI protocols you need. So TS, I'm going to have to ask more information from you than that. Does this shortcut involve the two different tables method? I guess not, because I don't use two tables. I use just one. Will you do any routing path problems? For example, having a source and destination IP address along the way. Psalm Pharaoh, no, I wasn't planning on doing that today. Don't have any time. We could probably do that. So the answer is Psalm, sure. I'll tell you what, Psalm, this is just for you, brother. Please send me a quick email and ask me a more detailed question, okay? Because what you have there is a little broad. Send me a detailed question, and I promise you at some point in the near future, we will get to it. And then that way you can, I'll be glad to address that question. Okay, so let's just go ahead and dive into subnetting. Now, yesterday we talked a lot about a lot of stuff. In particular, do you guys know what a subnet mask is? If I said WAC 24, do you know what that means? You know, that's a 255.255.255.0 subnet mask. So we did a lot of review yesterday on just the basics of IP addresses and stuff like that. I'm going to assume you know that, and I'm seeing some new faces here, so I'm getting a little bit nervous, but let's just go for it, okay? So what I want to do is talk about subnetting as it all began a long time ago, back in the old days. Unfortunately, I just looked up and I realized that I'm on the wrong slide. Those clicks are me flying through yesterday's slides as fast as I can. Sorry, guys. I was working on this presentation literally until like the last possible second. Okay, so the last thing we did yesterday, we talked about the old school Class A, Class B, and Class C. So I want to keep talking about that because that's kind of actually important, and I think I got it right. Okay, and let's start off with subnetting in the olden days. All right, the whole goal of subnetting in the old days is that you would have multiple locations or multiple needs for lots of different network IDs with different numbers of hosts, and they would give you a Class A or a Class B network ID, and then it was your job to divide it into Class B and Class C networks. This is how it was. We're talking late 80s here, okay? Because the only type of network ideas you could get would be WAC 8s, WAC 16s, or WAC 24s. That's all they passed out. All right, so take a look at this. Here's just one example network ID I've got thrown out here. So someone hands you a 155.17.0.0 WAC 16. So it's a Class B, okay? And what we can do is we can take this WAC 16 and turn it into a bunch of WAC 24 networks. Because in the old days, that's where you made your chops. So you could make, I'm not going to write out, there's 256 of these guys. So I don't, well, 255 because there's 0, 2. But I don't want to write them all out. So I've got 1 through 4 here, and then I jumped over a bunch, and then we're at 97, 98, 99, 100, and then all the way towards the end, 252, 253, 254, 255. Technically, I should have had 157.17.0.0 in there too. Look at the very beginning. I started with 155.17.1.0. I should have put 0.0 in there. We'll talk about why that's a problem, but not yet. Okay, get the idea? All right, let's dive back into the PowerPoint. So what happens is that one WAC 16 network, we can create 256 Class C subnets. So if you start with a WAC 8 and knock it down to WAC 16, you get 256 new subnets. If you start with a WAC 16 and drop it down to WAC 24, you get 256 subnets. And back in the old days, that's how you did it. What if I only wanted 3 subnets? Tough. You take what you want. Listen, guys, there were a total of 4 billion permutations in IPv4. Back then, we thought there'd be no more than maybe 10,000 computers on the entire thing called an internet. They didn't care. Do you understand? Kind of like what they're doing with IPv6 now. Shh. Okay. But the one thing is you always have to subtract 2 hosts. Now, let me show you this, what I'm talking about. So here's a network ID, which is going to be 192.55.3.0, WAC 24, okay? So if you think about this, now I'm dividing all this into binary just like we did yesterday, and you're going to go, and this is the subnet mask. So remember, anything to the right of the subnet mask is changeable. Anything to the left has to stay the same. Remember that. So as we go through here, if we have all zeros like this, that is what's called the network ID itself, and that's what's used by routers. Routers actually type in, here's part of, Sam Farrow, here's part of the answer to the question you're asking earlier. We actually type network IDs into routing tables, and that's how routers know where to send stuff. So it's absolutely impossible to ever have a host whose it ends with all zeros, because we save them for the network IDs. All ones is also saved. So here is 192.55.3.255. And in this case, that's going to be all ones. And that's what's called the broadcast address. And it's used for broadcasting, just for broadcasting. So the bottom line is always subtract 2 hosts. So whenever you set up a network ID, no matter how many hosts it says you have, always subtract 2. Got that? All right. So if I have a 192.55.3.0 WAC 24, so that's going to be 256 minus 2, I get 254 hosts. If it's a class B, I get 65,536 minus 2, or 65,534 hosts. If it's a class A, I'm not 16 million, blah, blah, blah. It's a big, big number, people. And just remember, always subtract 2 hosts. Okay. So back in the old days when you were subnetting, here's a situation what we have. I've got some organization. It's got a sales office, and then there's a manufacturing plant and a store. I need 420 hosts in the sales, I need 120 hosts in the plant, and I need 3 hosts in the store. Folks, one more time, let's be real careful here. This is the days before NAT existed. These are the days when you couldn't just go into a building, buy one IP address from your local ISP, and then everybody else was on 192.168s. Do you understand? If you wanted to be on the internet, I don't care if you're a server or a client, you had to have a legitimate public IP address. Got it? That's important. Okay, let's dive back in. So you call up the ISP and you go, all right, so I got these 3 locations, and the ISP goes, we got 2 offers for you here. We can give you a WAC 16, 155.17, or we've got 3 WAC 24s. And you're like, which one of these would I choose? So as you look at this, you have to make a choice. Do you want to do the 155.17 or the 2 200s and the 126? Now at first glance you'd say, hey man, I'll just do these. These might be cheaper. Or back then, a lot of times passing out was straight up free. Sorry, got some buffering going on. I'm going to just pretend like that's okay, and I'm just going to keep going. Okay, so if you take a look here, all of these are 254 hosts, right? And here over at sales, we need 420 hosts. Now, could you use 2 WAC 24s here to cover the bases? Sure you could, but that might include an internal router, and you don't want to mess with it. So probably back in these days, what we would do is we would just grab that 157 and just subnet it. So I would probably put 2 subnets over here for the sales. Then I'd put another subnet here because that's 254, only need 120, I'm good. And here in the store, I'm going to give it its own WAC 24, even though it only needs 3 hosts. Wait a minute, Isn't this a little wasteful? It's terribly wasteful. We need more dots. You understand the granularity that they came up with the Class A, Class B, Class C by only putting in 3 dots wasn't enough dots. They didn't think anybody was going to be more than 3 routers away from the top of the internet. They had no vision of the complexity that the internet eventually became. And as a result of that, we don't have enough dots is really what we need. We need more dots. So let's take a look at this IP address and all right, I'm seeing some messages. We're going to pause everything here. Okay, Wayne Seavolt, because I make typos all the time. When I write books, I make typos. My incredibly good in-house editing staff and other people miss those typos. The McGraw-Hill people miss those typos. Technical editors miss typos. Acquisitions editors miss typos. Acquisitions coordinators miss typos because there is no such thing as a perfect book. So, Wayne Seavolt, Mr. Meyer, you just put up 16777,216. So let's just do the math real quick. One moment, please. I want Wayne to have an honest and correct answer. That is a fair thing to ask. So I'm going to type in, just doing a quick little bit of math here. Bear with me, folks. Whoops. I don't know how to do math anymore. Okay, Wayne, the answer to your question is the book has a mistake in it. Big surprise there. The correct answer is 2 to the 24th power, which is 16,777,216. A couple of things to mention here. Number one, at no time is CompTIA going to ask you what 2 to the 24th power kind of questions are. It is a typo, and I apologize for that. I don't like typos. Years ago when I first started writing books, my ex-wife used to say, Mike, you getting typos is kind of like me looking for runs in my pantyhose. I'm constantly looking for them, and I hate it when I find one. So, anyway, Wayne Seavolt, thank you very much for bringing that error to my attention. We will in later episodes and in later versions of our books attempt to make a good correction on that. Thank you very much. Shall we return to the previously scheduled thing? Okay, let's dive right in there. So we need more dots. So here's just an example of an IP address. So remember, IP addresses are nothing but ones and zeros, right? And the 3 dots are in there extremely arbitrarily incorrect. So what we have here is binary value. I gotta minimize this live chat right now. Okay, so what would have happened if we had done something like this? Isn't that kind of cool? I mean, if you think about it, that would be kind of an interesting way to deal with the problem. It would have worked too. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, when they were developing this stuff, could they have done that? They absolutely could have done something like that, but it was hard. People didn't think that writing long IP addresses in this type of format would work great. And plus, we never thought you'd be more than 3 routers away from the top of the internet, so what the heck, man? So we didn't do that. But we could have also done something crazy like this. What if we did something like that? I mean, that really would have worked, right? I mean, the dots are completely arbitrary. We didn't want to do something complicated like that, or even if you really think about it, there are no dots. And the problem we run into with subnetting is because subnetting came out originally as like going from a WAC 8 to a WAC 16, or a WAC 16 to a WAC 24, or even a WAC 8 to a WAC 24, made this horrible, horrible victims of the dots is what I call it. There are no dots. It's like people just get all very confused about this stuff. If you just say to yourself, there is no spoon, there are no dots, subnetting becomes very, very easy. Now the problem is the first versions of subnetting, going from WAC 8, WAC 16, WAC 8, WAC 24, stuff like that, created this weird granularity and this entire group of routing nerds and computing nerds, because that was the only way they knew subnetting. So what we had to do is we had to go erase, 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 and we came up with some new technologies called variable length, subnet mask, and I can never remember the name. CIDR stands for, who cares? Let's get back into it. I got it in the PowerPoint. There are no dots. So variable length subnet mask and classless interdomain routing, or CIDR. Basically what we're saying here is forget about the dots. We can really put a dot anywhere. So that's what these are all about. So instead of just like a WAC 8 and a WAC 16 and a WAC 24, they're like, if we just imagine that it's all dots, and here's like a subnet mask. Do you see that? So there's a subnet mask. So we can have all kinds of different subnet masks. If you've got 10 ones, then you have a WAC 10. If you've got 19 ones, then you have a WAC 19. If you have 25 ones, then you have a WAC 25. If you have 28 ones, then you have a WAC 28. We're not locked into WAC 8, WAC 16, and WAC 24, and nor should we ever have been in the first place. The downside to CIDR is simple. The IPv4 nomenclature is stuck with the old 3 dots, and we're not going to change that. So you have to go through a process. Number 1, to do CIDR, you're going to have to convert the starting network ID and subnet mask to binary. Did you hear that? The first thing you do is you convert the starting network ID and subnet mask to binary. Remember, when we're doing subnetting, you will always start with a network ID with a subnet mask. You can't start it without something to subnet. Does that make sense? So every question that you're posed has to do with subnetting says, you have a blah, blah, blah network ID with this WAC subnet mask, and we want to make 3 subnets, or we want to make 8 subnets, or whatever we want to do. You're always going to start with that. So you do all of your subnetting work in binary, and then you have to go back through the process of converting the new network IDs and subnet masks back into dotted decimal notation. So let's go through this process, and we're going to do it like really one time in depth, but then I'm going to show you the cheat. So let's go through this process. I'll show you how it works. Yeah, subnetting is a good thing. Yep. Okay, here we go. Now, the first thing I want to show you guys is this. What I call the standard CompTIA, really I should have said subnetting question. So basically they come in one of 2 forms. It's the same question, just in 2 different forms. Number 1, it says, you're given a Class C network ID, and if you chop it into X number of subnets, how many hosts will you have on each subnet? Then the variation of that is, if you're given a Class C network ID, if every new subnet needs X number of hosts, how many subnets can you have? I shouldn't have said will there, I should have said can. So if you see questions like this, folks, the only thing you need to answer the question is the subnet mask. You're going to see detailed questions, primarily on Network Plus, but I've heard they're on A Plus and Security Plus now too, although Security Plus not so much. And that is a big, long, drawn-out question. Bob has a 17.44.66 WAC 24 da 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 da. It just goes on and on. And basically, he has 7 locations, and the maximum number of computers at any location is 9. Can it work? This kind of question, okay? To answer these questions, you don't even need the network ID. All you need is a subnet mask written out in binary, and you can get the answers to it. Let me show you. So on your first subnet, what we're going to do is we have starting off with a 192.168.4. Yeah, I know it's a private IP address. You can subnet private IPs on private networks. Doesn't matter. And I want to chop it into at least 3 network IDs. Okay? So let's go through that process. Number 1, write out the subnet mask in binary. I hope you have a pen and paper because I'd kind of like you guys to march through this while I work. And then put a vertical line at the end of the ones. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's WAC 24, so write down 24 ones in a row. And then finish out the subnet mask with zeros. Remember, a subnet mask is always 32 bits. So that's going to be 24 ones followed by 8 zeros. And just draw a little line in there. Okay? That's where the subnet mask begins. To get the answers to these kinds of questions, all we have to do is we start at a certain spot and we just keep moving over the subnet mask until we get the answers we want. The trick is how many new subnets do you get every time you move the subnet mask? And that's where that cheat thing's going to come into play. But we're going to do it the hard way first. Okay, so step 2 is we're going to put a second vertical line to the right until you have enough new network IDs. So let's go through that. You ready? So let's move the line once to the right. Now what we're doing here is we're extending the subnet mask, folks. So this may have started out as a WAC 24, but now it's going to be a WAC 25. Do you get that? Man, this trips people out the first time they see, wait a minute, it's not a WAC 8, it's not a WAC 16, it's not a WAC 24. How can I write out a subnet mask, Mike, if it's not 255s and zeros? Because subnet masks are not 255s and zeros. Subnet masks are a string of ones followed by a string of zeros. We're using the CIDR format, the WACs, we just say how many ones there are. You notice in those diagrams, I don't have any dots. There's no 255s. It's just pure binary. And if you stop thinking about the dots, this stuff gets a whole lot easier. I know a lot of people who do in fact I do this, is I imagine that there's 31 dots in there. Somehow that just helps me mentally go through this process. Whew, I'm pontificating. I need a sip of coffee. Shall we return? Okay. So if I move that over 1, I've got a space in between those 2 red lines where it could be one of 2 values. Remember, anything to the left is part of the network ID, and on a subnet mask it can't change. So it could be a 0 or a 1. So basically what's happening here is if I move it over a WAC 24 and I move it over 1, I have 2 network IDs. So one of them is going to be 192.168.4.0. That's the network ID for the first one. But now watch this. The second one is 192.168.4.128. Wait a minute, Mike. I thought network IDs all end with a 0. It does end with a 0. It ends with 7 zeros, not 8, but it ends with a 0. So if you wonder where that number came from, look right here. I've got 1000000000. So all you have to do is just convert that to decimal value. And the answer is 128. And that is how we can do a quick subnet. Now the problem here, if you notice what the question says, it says convert this network ID into at least 3 network IDs. And all we've done here is we've made 2. Do you see that? So we need to add a little bit more to this. So the answer is just keep moving that second vertical bar to the right until you have enough permutations to make the network IDs you need. I needed 3, right? So let's move it over one more time and watch what happens. So this time I'm going to move it over twice. Now you got to watch this very carefully, because what's going to happen now is what's our subnet mask going to be now, folks? I'll give you a clue. It's not WAC 24. It's not WAC 25. It is WAC 26. That's right, because we've moved it over 2 times. So now, because we've moved it over 2 times, we have two new binary values in there. That value can be 00. Do you see that? It can be 01. It can be 10, or it could be 11. I should have drawn those lines a little bit further down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of these. Now, first of all, here, I'm going to go backwards one. So the first one was easy because that's 8 zeros. So that's 192.168.4.0. Oh, that should be a WAC 26. Where's Wayne? I got another typo here, buddy. That's a 26. That's a 26. I'm going to say that louder. All the subnet IDs on the top are WAC 26s. Yes, Mike Meyers makes errors. Are we okay? I should have put 20. You know what? I'm going to stop the PowerPoint and fix that real quick. First, you fix your typos, Mike. I really hate typos, guys. Do you get that impression? It's just like, especially something like this where you really got to stay on top of it so everybody's edge is right there. All right, all fixed. I'm getting the PowerPoint back up to speed. Okay, and we're back. All right, so this first subnet is going to be 192.168.4.0. So it's 192.168.4.0. The next subnet is going to be this one right here. So I'm going to have to convert this value 01000000. All right, so somebody convert that for me. What is it? Yep, it's 64. How's that for easy? So now let's go to the third line, and I've got 1 0 in there. So I need to convert that into decimal. So that's a 128. And let's do the last one down here, 110000, and let's convert that into decimal, and we get 192. So we have taken one subnet and chopped it up into 4 subnets, but the question said I needed 3. Tough bananas, that's all you're going to do. Get the idea? And that is proper subnetting. You need 3 subnets, but you can't make 3. You can make 2, you can make 4. Get the idea? You can make 8, you can make 16. You see how it just keeps marching down? And keep in mind, of course, the number of hosts gets smaller for each one of these subnets that you make. So there's a lot of wastage in subnetting. Yeah, it's still got some issues for sure. So here are the 4 network IDs that I made from that particular one. So 0 is going to go from .1 to 62. .64 is going to go from 65 to 126. 128 goes from 129 to 190. And 192 goes from 193 to 254. So you notice that all of these, we don't have .0 or .60, or none of those are in there because those are network IDs. They can't be the actual IP address for a particular one. The broadcast address, which is going to be all ones, is going to be 63, 127, 199, or 255. Oh, shoot. Don't look at that, don't look at that, don't look at that. You can stare at me for a moment while I get this queued back up in the right spot. Ready? I'm not. Okay, and we're back. Okay, so what I want to do is make a WAC 27 subnet this time. Now I can almost do this in my head. So what I want you to do this time is we have a WAC 24 subnet, and we're going to chop it up into, I need 7 subnets. So what do I need to do? So the first thing you do is you write down the starting subnet mask. Don't put any dots in there. Please don't put any 255s. Write it out in binary. So we're going to start with a WAC 24. So that's going to be 24 ones followed by 8 zeros. Y'all got that? Okay. Now we just keep moving. Put a line in there where the ones end and just keep moving it till you get to the number you want. If we move it over 1 time, we get 2 hosts. If we move it over 2 times, we get 4 hosts. If we move it over 3 times, we get 8 hosts. Don't believe me? Move it over 3 times. You've got 3 binary digits in between those 2 vertical lines. They could be 00, 001, 010, 011, 100, 101, 110, 111. So that's 8 different variations in there. So that's all you've got to do to be able to count the number of network IDs. Now, also keep in mind that we reduce the hosts as we do that, so you want to be careful with that. So let's go ahead and count some hosts. So if I move something from a WAC 24 to a WAC 25, we know that there's going to be less than 254 hosts because everybody has, in a WAC 24 network, in a Class C network, you have 254 hosts. So we know it's going to be less than that, right? So all you have to do is count the zeros that are left over. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros there. So this is not my day for presentations. I bailed on that before anybody caught the typo. Well, I'll bet Scott Jernigan did because he's really good at catching those things. I'm still here, guys. Okay, yeah, we're back. So the answer is you just count the number of zeros, and it's going to be 2 to the 7th power, which is going to equal 128, and of course always subtract 2, which makes 126 hosts. So that's the real basics. You can do a lot more with subnetting. You can calculate all the different host ID, network IDs, all the the range of hosts and all that. But to be honest with you, I'm only aware of maybe like 1 or 2 questions on all of the CompTIA A+, Net+, Security Plus that ask that. And in my opinion, I don't really worry about it. I'm just going to use a little cheat to answer the types of questions that we're most likely to run into. So let's take a look at those. Now, I know I say the word cheat. It's not a cheat. It's just an easy way, a little table you can write down to help you figure this stuff out. So here we go. This is the cheat sheet. I've seen this around for years. I don't know. I want to give attribution, but there's so many people I've seen using it that I really don't know who. I did not come up with this, but it's clever and it makes sense if you look at it. So what you want to do is be able to write this down in your head. Remember, pretty much everything starts with a Class C, and then we subnet from there. So what we have is if you have a subnet mask of 124, you have 256 minus 2 hosts, and you only have 1 subnet. That's with your default starting Class C. So here's my Class C subnet that I'm starting with. Now, so that makes sense. So now what I'm going to do, you notice I've moved the subnet over to 1 more. So now I'm a WAC 25. Do you see that? Right there, right there. It's WAC 25. So if I move it over 1 time, I'm going to create 2 subnets, and I'm going to have 128 minus 2 hosts. If I move it over twice, I'm going to create 4 subnets, and I'm going to have 64 minus 2 hosts, and then that's a WAC 26. So you get the idea. It just keeps going on and on like that. So whatever you run into these questions on the CompTIA exams, really just sit there and go, okay, I've got a starting network ID, and that network ID is going to include the subnet mask. And it wants me to chop it up at least 3 times or no more than 10 times. You understand? And you just chop it till you get to the right number of network IDs. That's all you got to do. Just draw that vertical line, keep moving it to the right until you get the right number of network IDs. You can use that little cheat sheet, which I find works really well. to handle all the Class C stuff, which is going to be the vast majority of questions you're going to be running into on the CompTIA exam. So, all right, anyway, that's about all I want to be doing on this. I'm prepared to answer more questions on subnetting, but what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to come up with a question, okay, and then have me help you answer it. And again, we're going to do that through emails, folks. And just send me a quick email on your specific question, and we'll run through it. You need to practice this. I mean, I guess I could sit here and run you guys through a whole bunch of these. I'd rather not. But it's really just a matter of just keep practicing it until you get to the idea of how all this works. And it works out really, really well. And it's a pretty handy tool. The other thing you also need to really remember, so many people go, well, why do we subnet? I don't subnet at home. That's right. Subnetting isn't designed for little SOHO networks that have NAT on them where they're passing out 192s, 168s. Your ISP does a lot of subnetting. Amazon Web Services does a lot of subnetting. Once you get out of what they call the last mile, subnetting becomes very important. And it's my great hope that many, many of you will not be just playing with SOHO routers the rest of your life, and you'll be moving on to more advanced tools, and that's where subnetting really comes into play. The other nice thing about CompTIA subnetting is it's exclusively to IPv4. You can subnet with IPv6, by the way. It's easier, in my opinion. But the questions are like the ones I've described to you. They're pretty straightforward. And just practicing with that type of question, and you'll do fine on the exams. So good luck to you. All right. Let's see what's happening out there. People still talking to me? Okay, guys. No, it looks like Scott Jernigan's helping here. All right, so as we finish that, I see there's a lot of new faces in here. Number one, guys, this is the Mike Meyers Ask Me Anything. You can ask any questions you want. We'd had a number of questions on subnetting. So today I was just doing subnetting. I also had questions on topology, so I'm going to do topology next today. But also keep in mind that you're welcome to ask any kind of questions you want. And I welcome questions. And if you want to ask me a long question that I can't quickly do, just type in, send me an email. Either one of these emails works great. And I will be more than glad to answer those questions for you. So let's go ahead and get in there. Also, keep in mind, just because you're here today, just because you are kind enough to show up, we are giving you 50% off of our A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus practice question banks. I'm extremely proud of these question banks. And if you've never seen my question banks, we mimic the look and feel of the actual CompTIA exams. We do not copy questions. Sorry, folks. If you want to steal actual CompTIA questions, there are bad people out there who do that. But we work very hard to create the quality and intensity and tone of actual A+ questions. So if you do one of my practice questions and I say 2 + 2 equals, you might want to double check that you know what 2 + 3 equals. You know what I mean there, Vern? Okay. So they're a great deal. They are 50% off. All you have to do is type in that code MMLive 511 and go to our website, totalsem.com. Scott's got that all on there for you. And you can get some great deals on there. Okay, so the next thing I want to do real quick, because this is going to be quick, is the concept of topologies. Now, the first thing I want to say to you guys is that, man, I tried so hard not to have any typos in that stupid presentation. I'm very embarrassed right now. So anyway, sorry, I'm trying to get things queued up here. So anyway, the bottom line is that a topology is how we actually, I'm going to start by saying in the old days, a topology is how we actually hooked computers together. This certainly predates wireless, okay? So when we first start talking about topologies, I want you to think about cabling. And in the old days, so here we are, early 1980s would be a good start. All networks were cabled together, no exception to that. And the topology was how we cabled them. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me get it to fit, kids. How much smaller do I have to make this? There we go. Okay, pretty. I'm happy. Here we go. So the first generation of topology was known as a bus topology. In a bus topology, you had a single piece of cable called the segment. And this single piece of cable was the direct connection for every device. The way these devices connected to that cable, sometimes they had an in and an out, sometimes they had a vampire connection. Doesn't really matter. When you're talking about topology, just think segment. A ring topology, anybody ever heard the term token ring? Was where all of the different physical devices were connected to a ring of cable. So the cable, notice there's no hub here, people. There's no switch in the center. The cables just went around the office in a loop. And the last one was called a star topology. Star topology was rare and weird. With a star topology, what would take place Am I updating? Shoot. We're going to save topology for tomorrow when Mike Meyers figures out how to use PowerPoint. Sorry, guys. It's unlike when I have all the amazing support of having all my guys here next to me and working on things, I'm kind of pulling this off here in my own living room, and I'm not a super duper expert at PowerPoint, but we'll get it fixed up and we'll take care of it tomorrow. So that opens up some time for some questions, and I promise, whoever I promise to do the topology, I'll get this stupid PowerPoint fixed, and we'll pick it up again first thing tomorrow. Let's see what we got question-wise. Diego Medina, if we have a WAC 23 subnet, can one of the hosts start with 255 in the fourth octet? If you have a WAC 23, can it start with 255, or is that? Well, if it's a WAC 23, it may, in the last octet, it'll be, it's not 255, it's all ones, right? But because it's a WAC 23, it's got one more value. So even though you may type out the host as, 192.168.4.255, you're not saying WAC 24, Diego, you're saying WAC 23. Remember, the dots don't exist. We are stuck with this god-awful IPv4 nomenclature, and the only time you can see the reality of all this is when you go into binary. So the answer to your question is, sure you can, but just because it says 255 when we type it in, remember, it's some number 255 on a WAC 23, not a WAC 24, so it's not all ones. Yeah, I'm going to skip, Patrick, for Net Plus. We're going to be doing that. Yeah, it's very frustrating. I really do test these things, guys. Not with the same amount of aggression that I'd be doing if Scott Jernigan was here, because Scott Jernigan has a secret power of finding all my typos. And, of course, the other problem is my guys, obviously we've been teaching a lot of this stuff for decades, and the guys will send me a presentation, and I, the Mike Meyers, popular author, is going to go, I can do this a little bit better. And, of course, I tweak the bejeezers out of that presentation, and, of course, now it's all messed up. So I'll fix it. It'll take me 3 minutes to remember something silly like that. All right, let's see if we got any more questions coming in the pipe here. And, thanks, Wayne. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, it is frustrating. I'm a little crabby right now. Gino, I think a lot of the difficult questions contain a lot of irrelevant information. They absolutely do. I think one of the biggest tricks to working with CompTIA, more A plus, Net plus. Security plus has complicated questions, and often you need all that information. But Yeah, it's figuring out how to strip all that information out to get where you want to go. How relevant is Windows 7? Still on the exam. To be honest with you, if I was studying for A+ on my own, I would just get a copy of like Windows 7 and then a copy of Windows 10. In my opinion, CompTIA has done a pretty good job of making a lot of the questions. It doesn't matter what version of Windows. Or it'll say things like, you know, when I'm going into Device Manager, when you could just as easily be going into Settings and just maybe being comfortable. I mean, anybody who's worked with Control Panel versus Settings in like Windows 8 through 10 knows that there's been this exodus of tools that all used to be in Control Panel that are all moving over to services, but you still need Control Panels for stuff. So CompTIA tends to do a pretty good job of not necessarily, where do I click in Windows 8.1 to do something? No, they'll usually go, you know, I'm in Windows 8.1 and I get to the Control Panel. You know what I mean? And the version of Windows a lot of times doesn't even come into play. Geraldine, I don't remember how much topology is in play. What happened is earlier this week somebody said, Mike, teach me topology. And I just said, okay. Dave Rush was doing some research and he is under the impression that topology isn't even on the Net Plus anymore, which surprises me. But I don't want to put words in Dave Rush's mouth, but that's what I interpreted him to say. It's certainly not going to be on Security Plus, but I do feel that it is still on A+. WebTuber, my MacBook Air Series Max. No, speaky Mac, no good. I'm a Windows guy through and through. Windows and Linux and Android. But WebTuber, let me see if I can take a shot at it. Looks like you're just talking about batteries. Your battery exploded. Is it worth replacing it? My keyboard lifted. Or should a guy refurbish MacBook Air? Oh yeah, this has nothing to do with being a Mac. You need to throw that thing away. Number one, it's ancient beyond all belief. It's back from, it's 10 years old, which for a laptop is like 130 in human years. The keyboard lifted is the big clue. The chances of you having a lot of solders breaking in there is so high that, or you have any kind of warpage, if it pushed up the keyboard, probably pushed up the motherboard, stuff is shattered. Yeah, say sayonara. Hey, don't remember WebTuber, if things like that break in your house, a lot of times homeowners insurance covers it. People forget that all the time. Dave Rush stands by his assertion. So, yeah, it's no big deal. I'll get that stupid thing fixed and we'll be up and running again tomorrow. Okay, I'll tell you what. Since I messed up with that stupid thing, let's have a contest. You guys want to have a contest? We got about 5 more minutes left. I think we should squeeze in a contest. And let's have a contest on, you ready? You guys ready? I'm thinking. Oh, and by the way, this is for a $25 gift certificate from ThinkGeek.com or GameStop.com, same company. And so we're going to do something here. Let me think. All right. Competition time. Who's ready? So here's how these competitions work. Number one, they're not fair inherently, okay? So if I think the answer is, if the quiz was what is 2 + 2 and I think it's 5 and somebody answers 5, they win. Get the idea? It's just not worth the hassle, you know, and people get all bent out of shape. And sorry, if you're going to get a bent out of shape, then I'll quit doing contests. What I do promise you is that we do lots of contests every week. As a matter of fact, for you new folks, tomorrow is going to be a big day. We give away books and we'll be giving away certificates. So be sure to tune in tomorrow if you're looking just for prizes. But anyway, I'm going to come up with a particular one. Now remember, the first person who types it in to the live chat wins no matter what. You guys ready? I got to calculate these some myself. You ready? You are starting with a Class C network. If you set the subnet to, if you start with a Class C, and if you move the subnet to WAC 29, how many new networks do you have? You ready? You're starting with a Class C network. If you subnet it down to a WAC 29, how many new network IDs do you create? I got to calculate this myself. Okay, I think I got the answer. Let's see what people are typing. I'm gonna let people type. And in the meantime, I'm gonna pull up subnetting. And so the answer is, if you guys are looking, if we start with a WAC 24 and we move it over to a WAC 29, we get, that's right, 32 new subnets. So Mr. E, who was the first answer out of the block, probably a ringer, but that's okay. Mr. E, you have just won a $25 gift certificate to thinkgeek.com/GameStop.com. They have all kinds of fun stuff like caffeinated soap on a rope and t-shirts that say things like, no, I will not fix your computer, and there's no place like 127.0.0.1, and USB powered surface to air missiles, and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So it's a $25 gift certificate. In order to redeem this, Mr. E, what you need to do is send an email to Kathy Yale at TotalSem.com. That's Kathy Y at TotalSem.com. And you will get a $25 gift certificate. So congratulations to Mr. E. Probably a ringer, but ringers are welcome here as well as anybody else. Keep in mind, folks, don't panic if we didn't get to your questions today. I think we got everybody's questions, though, today, so I think we did all right. Tomorrow, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to have a nice, shiny, working PowerPoint presentation on the concept of topologies. We'll have that knocked out. And then after that, it's going to be an open day. So keep in mind, we'll be having all kinds of little contests of one thing or another. Keep in mind that I can ask questions on almost anything on an A+, Net+, or Security+. So, you know, I can't always guarantee that I'll have a question that you know the answer to, but I try to keep it as topical as I can to the types of discussions that we've been having here. But keep in mind, you know, it's all just for funsies. Also, when it comes to books in particular, while we're glad to give away books, sometimes it is absolutely impossible for us to get it to some of you folks who live in far-flung countries far away from the United States of America. In that case, we will try very, very hard to get you a Kindle book, if at all possible. Otherwise, we will come up with an alternative prize. Also, keep in mind, folks, just because you were kind enough to show up here today, you all get 50% off. This week, it is our A+, Net+, and Security Plus practice questions. All you have to do is go to TotalSem.com, TOTALSEM.com, and type in MMLive511. I'm going to let Scott Jernigan type it in. He'll type it in just a minute. And you get 50% off. This is an amazing deal for really, really good products, which are already, my practice questions are priced cheaper than any of my real competitors. There are silly people out there, but the people I actually trust who are writing quality questions, we're the cheapest ones out there. And you get them for half off. This is nuts. And then you get to talk to me. And you might even win a book tomorrow. I mean, come on. How much better does this get? Anyway, folks, I think that's all I got for today. Hold on, let me make sure. How much time? Oh, yeah, we're pretty much wrapping up. Patrick, you're very funny. Mr. E, what is a ringer? A ringer is somebody who is very, very skilled, who pretends they're not skilled. It's a compliment to you, so enjoy that. It means you know your stuff. All right. Anyway, with that, guys, I'm going to be saying good night. So this is your little Uncle Mikey saying good night, good night.